Good morning, and welcome to the First Unitarian Society of Madison. My name is Ros Woodward, and my pronouns are she, her. I'm a member of this congregation, and I volunteer as a worship associate, assisting our ministers in leading your worship services. Today, I'm joined by our co-minister, Reverend Kelly Asprooth-Jackson, and by the worship team of Linda Warren, Heather Thorpe, Drew Collins, Steve Gregorio, and Dan Carnes. And a special welcome and thanks to the members of our teen choir, our cherub choir and choristers, for sharing their gift of music and their enthusiasm today. And thank you to all those who are volunteering in many roles: greeters, ushers, hospitality providers, lay ministers, and sound operators. The First Unitarian Society, we question boldly, listen humbly, grow spiritually, act courageously, and love unapologetically. If you're visiting us today, we're so very glad you're here. If you would like more information about the First Unitarian Society, please stop by the welcome table located in the Commons just by the elevator to my left here. We hope you'll be able to stay and join us for coffee immediately after this service, also in the Commons. Today, there are going to be board members at the far table by the RE table, and they will be happy to listen to anything you want to discuss with them, so they're available. For those connecting with us virtually today, we're glad you're here. We hope that you'll be able to take a moment to watch the announcements and slides after today's service to learn about upcoming programs and activities. One special announcement: this coming Friday, February the 7th, our climate action team is hosting a showing of the film 2040 in the Atrium Auditorium at 7 p.m. This movie combines documentary and dramatized scenes to imagine the future world we can build together with the tools and resources that we have today. I hope you'll join us to watch this film and consider its message. And now I invite you to join me in a moment of silence to center ourselves and bring ourselves fully into this time as we join together once again in community. We arrive as individuals, as couples, as families, as neighbors, as friends.
We got here by walking, by biking, well, maybe not this morning, but you get the idea, by riding, by driving, by connecting.
We bring with us our joys and our sorrows, our laughter and our tears, our worries and our fears, our questions and our beliefs, our ethics and our values.
Some of us arrived early today, or joined us 10 minutes ago, or encountered obstacles on their way, or will arrive just in time for the sermon, or will sign online later this week, or even next month.
We're sitting in seats, leaning on walkers or canes, stretching in the aisles, settling in wheelchairs, and relaxing in recliners.
We, Members, friends, and visitors alike come from many paths and join together as one congregation to lift up our highest ideals.
We have gathered, now let us worship.
And now I invite you to rise in all the ways that we do and join me in the words of aspiration for the kindling of our chalice flame. As we light this flame of hope, may our congregation become a kaleidoscope of souls and people. In the presence of this flame, in me, in you, in us, is an invitation to sit at the table. May we tend our soul fire through these challenging and trying times to open the hearts and minds of all who enter our doors. And now I invite you to turn to those around you and greet each other with signs of love and peace.
Good morning, Linda. Thank you. Good morning, Brett. Good morning.
Good morning. I invite you to remain standing in body or in spirit and join together in singing the opening hymn, number 67. We sing now together. We sing now together our song of thanksgiving, rejoicing in God's creatures and
Well, now I would like to invite forward anyone who would like to come and join me for a story. Hi there. Hello, good morning. Good to be with you today. Hello, come on down. Hi there. Okay, there's a lot of carpet. Come on over. So good morning. I have a story for you today, but it doesn't start the way that a lot of my stories usually do. I think most often when I tell you a story, right, it starts with something akin to Once Upon a Time. Right? It's a story that takes place somewhere a long time ago in kind of an imaginary sort of way, right? Well, today's story is actually something that really happened. So I can't say once upon a time, but I can say a long time ago, in fact, almost exactly 457 years ago, because we're coming up on the anniversary this month, there was a place and a time where something very unusual happened. That very unusual thing is the one and only time in history where there was a king somewhere who was a Unitarian. What? There's just one of those. Does anybody know who that is? Anybody know that name? No, that's okay. You're going to learn today. That's okay. Anybody out there? Thanks, Andy. I can always count on you. The name is John Sigismund, for those of you who don't have Masters of Divinity degrees. Yes, so he is the one and only Unitarian king. He ruled a place called Transylvania, used to be part of Hungary. Today it is part of the nation of Romania. And he was the one and only Unitarian king in history. There are a couple of other corner case exceptions, arguments we could make. See me after the service if you want to dispute about it and whether or not Arianism counts among those members of the Roman Empire who were Arian. But anyways, John Sigismund, Unitarian king. Now, the thing you have to know about that place and that time is that here's how it usually worked for religion in Europe. Not just then, but for like 1,000+ years before then. You needed to practice whatever religion the king practiced. If the king was a Roman Catholic, you'd better be a Roman Catholic. If the king was a Lutheran, you'd better be a Lutheran. If the king was Orthodox Christian, you'd better be Orthodox Christian. For that matter, if the king was a Muslim, you're probably going to want to be a Muslim. And if you aren't whatever religion the king practices, then usually it's a hard situation for you. Sometimes it means that you pay extra taxes. Sometimes it means that you aren't allowed to live your religion in public. You have to do so only in secret or only at home. You're not allowed to go out and talk to people about your religion, not able to do any of the things your religion asks you to do when you're outside in the public world. Sometimes it meant you could go to jail. It even occasionally meant that it would cost you your life if you didn't have the same religion as the king. So here we have John Sigismund, first and turns out only Unitarian king, right? And he has to decide how is it going to work in his country. Is he going to make all of his subjects, all the people who live in his country, force them to be Unitarians, punish them if they're not Unitarians? There are a lot of Catholics to the west. There are a lot of Lutherans to the north. There are a lot of Eastern Orthodox people to the east, and there are a lot of Muslim people to the south. So everywhere around, different religious traditions, none of them are Unitarians. What's he going to do? What would you do? What do you think? You don't know? I think it's a big choice, right? And you don't have any good examples, because everybody else just says, if you don't believe what I believe, I'm going to punish you for it. So here's what he did. He published something, get ready for a fancy phrase, called the Edict of Torda. Now, edict just means a very fancy word for a rule, right? So it's just a rule, and Torda is just a place. So, right, so it's like saying the rule of Madison. Okay, the Edict of Torda. And the Edict of Torda was very unusual. It was a brand new idea for this part of the world because it said that you can believe what you want to believe. You can believe whatever it is that you have to believe. You do not have to pretend to believe what the king believes. You get to live your religion just how you want to. So, that is my one and only example of what happens when the Unitarians are completely in charge of a place. Instead of making everybody believe what we believe, we tell them they're allowed to believe what they already believe. What do you think? Was that a good answer? Do you feel like you came up with a good solution? No? Could have been a lot more Unitarians. We'd press the issue, right? But then again, this was at the very beginning of what we consider to be sort of organized, this era of organized Unitarianism. There were Unitarians before, but the Transylvanian Unitarians are the oldest group of Unitarians in the world that are still around today. So they kind of figured out the first basic ideas about what it would mean to be Unitarian. And I think what it means to be Unitarian, being people are allowed to believe what they have to believe, what's true in their hearts without being punished for it, that's a pretty good answer. I'm happy about that one. Yeah, it sounds more fair. Thank you so much for listening to my story. We are going to turn here and listen to the choir. Sing you to your classes.
Please rise in body or in spirit and join together in singing hymn number 323, Break Not the Circle.
To
Our words of inspiration today are written by Nancy Schaefer. Because she wanted everyone to feel included in her prayer, she said right at the beginning several names for the holy. Spirit, she said, Holy One, Mystery, God. But then, thinking these weren't enough ways of addressing that which cannot be fully addressed, she added particularities, saying, Spirit of life, Spirit of love, Ancient Holy One, mystery which will not be ever fully known, gracious God, and also Spirit of this earth, God of Sarah, Gaia, thou. And then, tongue loosened, she fell into naming superlatives as well. Most creative one, greatest source, closest hope. Even though superlatives for the sacred seemed to her probably redundant, but then she couldn't stop. One who made the stars, she said, although she knew technically a number of those present didn't believe that stars had been made by anyone or thing, but just luckily happened. One who is an entire ocean of compassion, she said, and no one laughed. That which has been present since before the beginning, she said, and the room was silent. Then, although she hadn't imagined it this way, others began to offer names. Peace, said one. One my mother knew, said another. Ancestor, said a third. Wind, rain. Breath, said one near the back. Refuge. That which holds all. A child said water. Someone said Kuan Yin. Then womb, witness, great kindness, great eagle, eternal stillness. And then there wasn't any need to say the things she thought that would be important to say. And everyone sat hushed until someone said, Amen.
In the Zen Buddhist tradition of Japan, there is a spiritual practice called enso. Japanese culture in general is deeply reveres calligraphy, writing artfully with brush and ink. And enso is adjacent to that, but it's not quite the same thing. It's not a practice of writing. It is the drawing of a circle in just one stroke. A single revolution of the brush which creates a loop of ink on the page. Now you must understand both that there are artistic and aesthetic standards at play in doing this, and also that perfection is very much not the goal. As someone who is terrifically bad at all forms of freehand drawing, even simply drawing a circle, I am consistently impressed by how circly the circles of an enso practitioner tend to be. And the ink pattern is never perfectly even. The hairs of the brush are not always hidden by the stroke. In fact, they are often emphasized by it. Sometimes the circle doesn't even fully close at the end of the stroke. Instead, there is just the last wispy tail arcing towards where the brush first touched down, implying the completion of the shape, but leaving the whole thing open. Each circle is different, and there is no singular ideal, no one right way for them to be. and so is a recurring practice. Its value is in the discipline of repetition. The physical act of drawing just one circle takes hardly any time at all. For the practitioner, the meaning emerges slowly as a regular, perhaps daily, practice. Now, there is a famous quote about drawing a circle, at least famous to our particular cohort. Many years ago, the Universalist Edwin Markham, who was at one time the poet laureate of the state of Oregon, penned this short epigram. He drew a circle that shut me out. Heretic, rebel, the thing to flout. But love and I had the wit to win. We drew a circle that kept him in. As a people, without the luxury of a hell to consign our adversaries to, we may look to Markham's formula for both consolation and inspiration. Any human being who lives long enough comes to know the sting of exclusion, though the severity of that sting can range from the merely painful to the truly death-dealing. But the drawing of a circle of care and inclusion, which is narrow and strict and determined to define who has value and who does not, comes with high costs for those on the inside as well as those outside of it. As the contemporary author Cole Arthur Riley puts it, exclusion harms both the excluded and the excluder. If you are the hands of exclusion for long enough, you learn acceptance only at the hands of someone else's exile. You learn belonging as competition, not restoration. It is also a kind of restlessness, for the energy you expend forbidding others to walk through the door of community is only matched by the energy you expend competing to stay inside yourself. This is maybe more dangerous. No one ever perceives the doorkeeper as needing an invitation themselves. Now, whenever I preach on this theme, it is inevitable that the question arises earnest and difficult from someone listening. So if you are that person, let me articulate it and answer it in advance. The question is, must I love and welcome not only into my heart, but into my presence those who would wish me harm? Let me assure you in advance that the answer is no. The capacity to feel sincere love for one's own persecutors may bring a form of solace and peace to the one who feels it, but it is not a requirement to live a morally upstanding life. More to the point, some people, by their actions, threaten harm or do harm to others to such a degree that you are not obliged to make yourself continuously vulnerable to them. Circles of belonging in community can still come with basic standards of behavior. The expectation of tolerance as a sort of social contract. You will be tolerated so long as you tolerate others is one example of this. But that is different from the fundamental circle of compassion, of having a human interest in another human's well-being, regardless of whether or not it is possible for you to safely live with them. Deeper than petty grievances or fleeting affections, deeper even than whom we choose to surround ourselves with, run the ways in which we actually treat each other, and the attitudes of malice or kindness that we show towards other human beings. It matters how we draw that circle, not just because it is nice to be treated nicely and it hurts to be treated hurtfully, but because of the ways that who and what we draw into our circle of understanding shapes everything about how we see and experience the world. In one story from the great Chinese philosophical work, the Shuangzi, we see something about how a more literal, geographic drawing line may have this effect on our basic perceptions. Once there was a frog who lived at the bottom of a shallow well. The well was very small, but he did not understand how small it was. One day, a friend came to visit the frog, a turtle from the great East Sea. When the frog looked up into his tiny blue circle of sky and saw the turtle peering down at him, he croaked, "Hello, friend, it is good to see you. I bet you were just thinking how perfect my home is. I think so too." And the frog hopped up to the rim of the well. You see, when I want to go out, I just hop up to the rim in one jump, and when I come home, I simply hop back down again. My home has water enough to float in and rest when I'm tired, and nice, cool mud to dig my feet into so that they never dry out. He was very pleased with himself and his home, but his friend the turtle seemed unimpressed. So the frog continued to boast. "Of all the many creatures that live in this well, the small worms and the little crabs and the tiny tadpoles, I am by far the greatest and the most important. I am the lord of this well, which is larger than any puddle or rain barrel that I have ever seen. Surely these waters must be the most bountiful in all the world." Now, after saying all of this, the frog invited the turtle, who still did not seem that impressed, to come down into the well and to experience its glories for himself. The turtle did try, but he couldn't get both of his front legs to fit into the opening of the well at the same time. He was simply too big. Then the turtle explained to the frog about his own home. "My friend, I live in a place so vast that you cannot imagine it. The great East Sea is so wide and so deep and so far across that no one could ever count all of the creatures that it holds." The frog assumed that the turtle was making up a story, but the turtle continued to try to help him understand. "In the time of King Yu, there were floods 9 years out of 10, but the waters of the sea did not increase. In the days of King Tang, there were droughts 7 years out of 8, but the waters of the sea did not decrease. The sea is so enormous that it does not rise or fall according to the rains. It is the greatest happiness to live in the immeasurable Eastern Sea." What we imagine as the physical boundaries of our caring, of our investment, the place that is the scope of what we care about, matters. Who we imagine as falling within the circle of our compassion matters. And what parts of ourselves we imagine as worthy of resting within that circle matters profoundly as well. For the lines that we cut across our own hearts and spirits can be the deepest and most destructive of all. Drawing the circle over again starts there, with ourselves. The poet Rosemary Watola Tromer dramatizes such a process in one of her poems. She writes, "I'm sorry. I thought banishing you was the way to become better, more perfect, more good, more free. The irony, I thought if I cut you off and cast you out, if I built the walls high enough, then the parts left would be more whole. As if the sweet orange doesn't need the toughened rind and the bitter seed. As if the forest doesn't need the blue fury of fire. It didn't work, did it, the exile? You were always here, jangling the hinges, banging at the door, whispering through the cracks. Left to myself, I wouldn't have known to take down the walls, nor would I have had the strength to do so. That act was grace disguised as disaster. But now that the walls are rubble, it is also grace that teaches me to want to embrace you. Grace that guides me to be gentle, even with the part of me that would still try to exile any other part. It is grace that invites me to name all parts beloved. How honest it all is, how human. I promise to keep learning how to know you as my own, to practice opening to what at first feels unwanted, meet it with understanding, trust all belongs, welcome you home. Coming to accept whatever it is in our hearts that we have been trained to deny is the first step in widening the circle of our own practice of compassion. And while this is internal, it is also an external process as well. We know ourselves in large part through the work of knowing others and being known by them. There's a sacred story from the Lakota Nation about a time when Coyote decided he wished to live by himself, away from the other animals. When he set out on his own, Rabbit followed him for a while, trying to chat, hopping out ahead of him and offering to scout the way forward. Coyote wanted to know what Rabbit had seen up ahead, but he was stubborn, and he refused to speak. So Rabbit turned back and left him alone. That night, as Coyote made camp by himself, he lit a fire and danced and played the flute and drum. But he found he could not remember how to sing. The next day, he came to the place where Moose lived, and Moose greeted him, offering to show him a safe, easy path through the wilderness. But Coyote was still stubborn and certain that he was better off alone, so Moose left him to himself. That night, Coyote made the fire and danced, but he could not remember how to play his flute and drum. After that evening, Coyote met some birds who chirped and sang and wanted to talk to him all day and night. But Coyote barked and snapped at them until they flew off and left him alone. That night, Coyote made his fire, but he could not remember how to dance anymore. So Coyote became afraid that if he spent another day alone, he would not even be able to remember how to build a fire again. That night, White Buffalo Calf Woman, who is the great prophetess of the Lakota religion, spoke to Coyote in a dream. She reminded him that his songs and his music and his dance, even the knowledge of how to build a fire, all depended on things he had learned from others. When he shut them out of his heart, he lost those things that they had taught to him. His only way to regain that knowledge that made him himself was to return to living among those who were different than him. Now, the Enso practice is, in one sense, completely different from what Edwin Markham was talking about. The circle drawn with a single brushstroke does not represent the contours of belonging for a community or the boundaries of our loving kindness. It is a visualization of emptiness and the specific Buddhist concept of no mind, that equanimity to be found in accepting and understanding the unreality of the self. But it is, as I said before, a discipline. It requires repeating the same practice over and over and over again. It is not done once and then abandoned as complete. And it is never perfect. Perfection, in fact, is antithetical to its purpose. When a group of people, as a community, draw their circle of belonging together, and when a person draws their own circle of caring, these processes are exactly the same. They require repetition, being not just willing, but enthusiastic to do the same sort of work again and again and again, with subtly different results. And they will not be perfect, cannot be perfect, for perfection is antithetical to the goal. As a congregation, we draw a messy and beautiful circle together. We draw it again and again and again. And by the drawing of it, we become who we are and grow into who we can be through our connections to each other. We gather in community because we are stronger in acting together, because we are wiser in reading the signs of the times together, because we can get and give the help that we need together. But first and foremost, because we can only be ourselves, our truest, deepest, finest selves, by being together, by drawing that circle that keeps the whole of us in.
I invite you into this time of giving and receiving, where we give freely and generously to this offering which sustains and strengthens our community here, and also our outreach offering recipient, who this week is the Women's Medical Fund, who is one of the oldest abortion funds in the nation. Since 1972, WMF Wisconsin has supported Wisconsin residents in paying for abortion care. a volunteer-led nonprofit organization. WMF Wisconsin also educates and organizes for abortion access. There are multiple ways to share your gifts this morning. Baskets now being passed here in the auditorium for cash or checks, or you can donate directly from our website, fusmadison.org. And you'll see on the screen our new text to give information. We thank you for your generosity and your faith in this life we create together.
Each week we gather, carrying in our hearts the joys and the losses of our days. We hold our own pain and celebration together with those of the ones we love. We share them here, knowing that they are held in support, in care, and in love. We light a candle of strength and care for Teresa Bergson-Gallen, who was recently diagnosed with breast cancer. We send our healing thoughts to Teresa, and to all those supporting her, and wish her courage and wherewithal in the struggle ahead. We light a candle of grief for the loss and gratitude for the life of Richard Bilder, who died this past month. Richard was many things in his life: a Fulbright scholar, an attorney, a professor of the law. Our thoughts are with his wife Sally, their children, and all those who knew and loved him. Details about the service will be forthcoming shortly. We light a candle for all those who feel isolated by grief, by chronic pain, by mental illness, and all others who are alone and lonely. To you we extend our compassionate hearts. And we light a candle for all those joys and sorrows, hopes and dreams that remain unspoken in the silent sanctuaries of our hearts. I invite you now to turn with me both inward and outward and join in an attitude of meditation and of prayer with these words from Chad Snyder. Love is loud. Love, says one of those old church covenants, is the spirit of this church. Love, the spirit of our church? I hope so, because love has things to say. Love is joy and laughter, giggles and silly love songs, but love speaks too. to the real pain in the world. Love knows. It knows hate and fear, selfishness, greed, bullet and blade, cutting edge of indifference. Love knows, and love does not let us turn away, does not rest in thoughts and prayers. Love knows the names, says the names out loud, and will keep saying them until the day, we hope against all that is holy, those names no longer need saying. Love is loud. Love clamors, it applauds, it shouts down and fires up. Love calls to the margin, and not waiting for the echo, chases its voice to that margin in song and joyful noise, in apology for hurts caused, shifts the center until the margin isn't. Love does not suffer the suffering of others in silence, but resonates in silent space held for another's story. Love is the spirit of this church if we choose it, give it voice, and if we make that choice, then in the noise, in the raucous joy and wailing pain, righteous rage, in the resonating silence, in the cacophony of beautiful voices and possibilities, through all that holy racket, love will guide us. Amen.
Please rise in body or in spirit as we sing our closing hymn, number 131, Love Will Guide Us. Love will guide us, Jesus guide us, up inside us, really the way, on the road from free to living. Love will guide us through the night. If you cannot see like angels, if you cannot speak with your thousands, you can live from deep within you. You can change the world with love. Love will guide us, peace is guide us, up inside us, really the way, on the road from free to living. Love will guide us through the night.
May we practice, try again. May we practice sacred flexibility, letting go of geometric purity when it comes to our circles, so that we are unafraid to draw them wider, stretch them longer, and find joy in the task of rearranging. Let us be fearless in our willingness to make new shapes, so that we may be accountable to people who have not found us yet, so we may welcome those who thirst for our healing message, so that we may engage with our people and our partners the work before us to save our lives as citizens and as human beings. Go forth and make some new shapes. Blessed be. Go in peace, and please be at rest for the postlude.